live stream video challenge. We've got 30 days to produce 100 videos. And so I am on video number 31, and I'm taking you behind the scenes of my video creation process. Okay, so this is a project that I worked on for Dr. Stacy NC Grant for the Faithpreneur Weekend 2020. Awesome event. If you have not gotten your ticket for next year's event, I highly suggest that you do it. So without further ado, I'm going to talk over this video as it moves forward. But let me start off by saying that, there were a lot of different creative elements that came together in this video. And what I loved about this project is that Dr. Stacy NC Grant just said, Jason, I trust you. You know what you're doing. Just do your thing. And so I had an opportunity to access the different videos and was able to take some supplemental interviews with her in order to put together some different marketing pieces to describe the event. And so here we go. Okay, so this project, I went a few ways with this, and they were all fun, but I wanted to drop out the color to give that old video look, old television look.
Let's take a trip down memory lane, okay? You started Faithpreneur Weekend, and it wasn't a thing.
Drop out the
it wasn't
audio
something
a little bit.
that you said, okay, yeah, you know what? We're gonna do this. This is gonna be a
Okay, we'll drop the audio to 50%.
Like into the decade,
Okay,
into the generation.
so
Now, tell us the story of how this started. What happened?
Jesus got a way of setting you up. So we really want to go down memory lane. Let's go all the way back to when I started doing the
Okay, so there were so many things going on here just to get this interview. We had everything to do from all of the stuff to get set up, because this year, we did it virtually. So there was just a few people who were actually on site. Everybody else was in attendance via virtual because of COVID. So Lethea Owens, who is a tech phenom, she is a genius at tech. Her and her partners, they handled doing the actual event for Faithpreneur Weekend this year, and they did a phenomenal job. If you all ever wanted to hire on a company that knows what they know and can execute, can implement, it's Lethea Owens and her crew. Just amazing to work with. They're awesome. Okay, so that said, we had to make sure that folks knew how to get the tickets ordered. So that had to be a part of the credits. Okay, so you see that scrolling across the screen right now. And so as you're putting together these videos, you've got to look at all of the different layers, all the different elements, and you've got to listen in on what's being said in the interview. Now, Stacy, she is no stranger to speaking. She is a celebrity, MC. She is a world-renowned speaker. And so she knows how to handle herself when it comes to filling the space with dialogue. And so I basically was able to just ask her a few questions, and then she just went to town, which gave me all that I needed in order to edit together these promos.
We need prayer, so we're just going to pray. And we moved on with the prayer call. I'm thinking I'm building this part of the prayer.
So if you notice, let me stop this for a second and kind of dissect this a little. Okay, so if you notice, so Stacy's got her backdrop. Okay. Oh, look at that. Okay, and so you've got NetStruck, you've got TJH Media, you've got Photos Granted, Granted Photos by Grant. I think I said that right. Okay, you've got sponsors, Okay, Weibo, another sponsor. You got Delta Airlines sponsor, I Worship, media partners, Rogue Media, it's Destiny Designers University, Miss uh, Miss Jeannie's hair care company, really good product. And then I've got my bug. It's called a bug. Your little logo. My bug in the video, and that way, as it gets distributed, my bug is there. And then I created a bug for Stacy. Um, and so when I redid this video after I finished the interview, because I did the interview for my page and my community so that they can know about Faithpreneur Weekend and attend. And then I redid this, edited it just slightly different, and then I put a bug for Stacy for the Faithpreneur 2K20. So, those are some of the elements, and then you're hearing the background music. None of that was there during the interview. All of that was put together in post-production. So you're shooting your interview, getting that all out straight, asking questions, you're being very broad, very expansive, because you want to make sure that you leave enough space for brilliance to come out of those that you're interviewing. That wasn't hard for Stacy. She's always saying brilliant things, so it was more of a challenge trying to chop down on stuff that she said, to not have the video be too long. And we were able to get it in at 37:37. Okay, so back to it.
In the background, what I thought was the background, I'm still, every Saturday, we're praying. Every Saturday,
this was an origins question. How did Faithpreneur begin? And so she's breaking that down.
Where I'm like, we're going to launch Destiny Designers University. I know what. I'm like, I protected my intellectual.
Okay, so you're hearing in the background that was a car going by, or a motorcycle or whatever.
Everybody else tell me what it should be, right? And then, you should do this, you should do that, you do the other. And I'm like, okay, we launched it.
But with the music in there,
amazing launch.
You don't really know if it was part of the music or if it was something else.
Hilarious, because I complicated it. He gave it to me nice and smooth. He was like, here you go, daughter. And I spent the entire day filming and broadcasting. And I went and then complicated it. When it's the very thing where we're coming back to full circle. So hold that thought. Okay. So when we launched Destiny Designers University, we launched as a training and development platform where you graduate to the next best version of who you are by turning.
Okay, so when you're shooting, there's a lot of things that can happen. Noises in the background, especially when other things are going on. And so during this time, they had a whole bunch of things, because it was like, talk about the intersection of everything that could happen. They could possibly, tank your production if you allow it to. Well, everything was happening, and so they were doing a tremendous juggling act behind the scenes, getting everything ready for the virtual event. I was doing my thing on my end. The whole team had their hands full with their particular tasks. And so I think that energy allowed Stacy to dive a little deeper into what's going on, because she was kind of like walking it out at this level in this year for the event.
He trying to take me down again, like, oh my God. And sometimes it's not dominion at work. God doesn't allow certain things to happen because it's not what he ordained.
Exactly.
And I can see clearly now that wasn't the way he wanted. He gave me what it was, but I still didn't understand it. So I was complicating and adding layers from other people, and that's why he couldn't stand.
I'm I believe in having more than one song inside of your interview, especially if it goes longer than 5 minutes, because there's different energy levels that happen at different stages of the conversation. There are certain times that, you've got music that speaks to memory, some that speaks to determination, some that speaks to sorrow, some that
for me to
speaks to
finish my book
happiness,
because I was
some that
sitting on
speaks to
that at
strength,
pre-launches and
and
people
all the
ordered
other
the
things in
book.
between.
Book wasn't finished.
So
So my
as you're
husband looked at
selecting
me. He's like,
music,
"Oh,
you're looking for
I
the
guess this will be
pacing,
the
you're looking for the
inspiration to really
feel,
have you
the
complete this
overall
project."
elements
And
that
we
it
announced
provides
that
in order to
January
round out your
that we were
production.
going to
And then you
actually
also want to
have
make
the
sure that it's
launch of
not
the
overpowering
launch of my
so
book
that
on her
it
birthday,
doesn't
the
take
eve of her
precedence
birthday. So
over
August 16,
what the speaker is saying.
2016. Action, despite the distractions. 7 life lessons on how to thrive and live your destiny now was launched. Sell out, standing room only book launch, which was a whole testimony in and of itself. You have to read the book because I actually added in to the book to understand what happened leading up to that.
Yeah,
Like God has
that book
been
was something else.
exercising my faith, something serious, right? To really understand the scripture he gave me in the process of losing the book and being able to generate the book in time for the launch. Luke 1:37, but with God nothing shall be impossible. So we were
And that's
able
the
to do
truth.
that launch, and the very
Let me stop you for a second because you kind of skipped over like a major chunk of a faith move. Just trying to
Okay, so
slide it.
this is when
Okay,
it's
just okay.
important that you
But
really
there's
know
something in
your
there that
interviewee
took
and
place
know a little of the
that I think
backstory,
speaks directly
because
to
when
how
they
you don't walk
kind of
by sight,
glaze
but you
over
walk by the
something
word.
that actually is
Please,
quite
okay
critical,
here.
you can catch
What
them
happened?
and back
but
them
see,
up
I
into
know
that
what
story,
happened.
which is what I
You
had to
know
do
what
with
happened? Yeah.
Dr.
Oh
Stacy
my
Anthony
goodness.
Grant here.
So when I made the announcement that we were going to actually have the book launch, I'm in my mind saying it's going to be this date.
Yeah,
I was
everything
actually
you do
booked
should
to
be
do
very
a
intentional.
speaking engagement with the
So
book
you want to make sure that
in
you
the
are
beginning of the year,
delivering the
but I didn't have the book
elements
finished,
that
and I
really
started
tell the
panicking.
story.
And you can't trust God and panic, right?
And
You
if we
can't
had,
pivot if you're panicking, as my
more
big sister Linda
time,
would say. But
I'm
one of my
sure
dear
that
friends,
this
one
project would
actually
have
helping
been
me
even
to
more, it would have
power
been a
Faith
little
Weekend
different, more
2020,
nuanced,
Lizzie Owen, she was like, well,
but this
just give
worked
out the
out.
first chapter of the book as the promo as you're leading up to your actual launch date. And I
Okay,
was
so
like,
you hear the
it was like
music
a weight was
building,
off.
and she's
So
talking about
I scurried
leading
and
up
made sure
to.
that was edited and ready to go. But time kept moving, right? The months started going. I'm like, okay, the book is coming out on August 16th. We're doing the pre-launch. We're doing the pre-sales. Everybody is excited. We're booking venues. We have all this stuff together. And towards the end of July, I'm finishing up. I'm thinking I'm at the last leg now. We're getting ready to make sure the edits are done, the layout. And I'll never forget the night. I'm working on the book. And I'm like, okay, God gave me a download on how I was going to put in these little action items that people were going to take away. He gave me the distraction alerts. And I'm like scurrying and I'm writing all this stuff in. And I'm like, okay, let me close it
How
down.
many
I
of us
saved it
have been in
closed.
this
I was like, oh, I forgot
or
one
a
thing.
similar
Go
situation?
back in, press the computer, no book. I'm like, wait. Like, it was back to the skeleton. It was back to just the chapter days. I was like, wait. So I'm literally sitting at the computer like, okay, let me just calm down. Let me restart because I'm married to a techie. My whole house is free. Like, I know this thing is safe. So I'm like, there's no book. So now
I
the
remember
panic
this.
starts to set in. And I'm like, I remember going up the stairs in slow motion, like just trying to get up. The first slide to go upstairs, like slow motion, like I couldn't even breathe. So I'm like waking up my husband. At this point, it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, so he's like turning over because he sleeps so hard. He turned over like, what's going on? I was like, no. I couldn't even get a book. He's like, what is wrong with you? I was like, no. Like literally, I couldn't breathe. He was like, the what? So when he finally figured out I'm saying book, and he's seeing that I'm totally flushed, like I'm like in panic mode, he runs downstairs and he's like, okay, what'd you do? And I'm like, there's the file. Like I'm pointing, bro. Like, there's the file. So he's looking and he's working quietly. He was like, this is the file? You saved it, right? And I'm like, yes. So I'm heaving. I'm like, okay, at this point he's gonna be able to find it. Like he has to be able to find the book. He's looking. He's like, babe, did you save it? I was like, of course I saved it. Isn't there auto save and a backup on top of me saving it? He was like, it's not here. I'm like, you cannot. Like, in that moment, I saw sun, moon, and stars. I felt like, I don't even know how to describe, like, everything was coming out of my body. Like, somebody had dragged the breath out of my body. I was like, what do you mean it's gone? He said, babe, I'm sorry. Like, I searched everything. I'm looking on the server. I'm doing all the backup. There's nothing here. My entire book was gone. Mind you, we're less than a month away.
So here it is. Had we not talked about that story, we would have missed one of the key elements of Faithpreneur Weekend and all the stuff leading up to the event. And this is why it's important that you really understand the backdrop of the project that you're working on, get the backstory, even the things that seem insignificant. And I cannot stress this more. The story is so critical. You have to know the story. You have to embrace the story and understand the angles that you can speak to the story, that you can relay that story. Because if you're talking about faith, then you need to be pulling from that story those elements of faith. If you're talking about perseverance, same thing. If you're talking about sorrow, so whatever it is, you need to be able to draw that from the content, the dialogue, the engagement that you've got going on there with your interviewee. So you can weave that into the end product. So Stacy was able to relay that story, and it was as if it happened yesterday. I remember the call when the book was erased and the prayers and the encouragement and all that. You know, there were quite a few folks who were praying for her in that process. And so when she got the book done, it was pretty amazing just how God brought that whole thing together. That story, the rest of that story, and I recommend that you listen to the whole thing, especially if you are, new to this faith walk and you are thinking that all hope is lost when things happen. Look, let me tell you, hope is not lost. You have to continue to move forward no matter what your eyes and brain tell you. Because faith, it moves when you can't see it. It moves on things even in the midst of your own discouragement. So, back to putting this together. This was pretty straightforward. It was just a matter of editing, cutting out bits and pieces that didn't need to be in there, and then making sure that the components that were left behind or left in, that they flowed into each other. You also are looking at the type of words that are said and the inflections that are said, because that's going to help you with your music selection and your graphic selection and all of that. If things are very curt, very snappy, you will choose a different font than if things were all extra flowery. And so you need to know that there is a psychological impact or a psychology behind why you would pick certain things. And it's kind of interesting because I remember this scientist, I forget what branch of science she was in, but she's like, I never, heard of color science, or either that or she has heard of it, but it was not something that was accepted as real inside of her community. So anyway, let me not go down on that tangent, but bottom line is that you want to make sure that when you are diving into the subject matter, you dive deep enough so that they can kind of run with the explanation, and then you edit from there. Don't pre-edit and cut them off or keep them from expounding in order to just get a snippet, because what ends up happening is that you may get that snippet, but you may end up losing the heart and soul of the story because you missed a key element. Also, you definitely can't really get the most mileage out of repurposing if you cut them off too early. Okay, so on that note, you saw the beginning or opening sequence that had its feel, And let me see if we have a closing sequence on this one. Yeah, but definitely go to Destiny Designers University for the, to see the whole thing. Let's see if there's closing.
How can I sustain it? How can I put the pieces in place so that I can be cash flow positive, that I can be in a position to take advantage of things that come, whether it's a government EIDL loan or a PPP, because I have done my work in due diligence in being able to show myself approved for the blessings that you have in store for me. So come on and join the movement. Be a part of 1 million cash flow positive faithpreneurs. For such a time as this, the world needs us to say yes, to stand up, to be the answers for the headaches that we're seeing, to be the answers for the problems that we're suffering from, and be the solutions for the peace and the healing that this world needs.
Okay. So this closing graphic was the same as the opening graphic, except for the difference is that in the closing graphic, let me see. Okay, in the closing graphic,
because I have done
what
my
ended up
work
happening
in being able to show myself approved.
There's no filter, there's no animation, there's no extras on it, so it comes out the color that it is. Yeah, so we built that closing graphic out of a few elements or images, some of the graphics that we had laying around. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this is one thing, this is another thing. Put them together and then put them on a thumbnail image, 1920 by 1080, and then call it a day. I was able to put that graphic there and close out that particular broadcast. So hopefully that was straightforward enough for you to see that, you can do this. You just have to break your story up into components and then see what each component is saying or teaching, directing, and then you start to gather or curate those elements so you can put them together properly. So on that note, I am the Jason Hodge, coming to you with my video 31. Got one more to do to fill my obligation for the day. That's pretty exciting. So I will catch you later. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to reach out to me, jasonhodge.biz, or you can, and that's down this area right here, or you can DM me in my inbox. You can email me if you've got my email address. I don't just plug that out there so I don't get spam, but those who have it, definitely reach out and email it. And that's it for tonight, or that's it for this video. You have a great one. I will see you in